Hey and welcome to Light Church. I'm so excited that you're joining this morning for our virtual gathering. Wherever you're tuning in from, I'm so glad that you are here and that you made it. We've got an exciting morning ahead. We're going to head into a song of worship and then we've also got a short message for you. I really hope this morning that you feel inspired and encouraged and you go away with a little bit something. I hope you have a great morning and I'll see you at the end.
I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. 'Cause my heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh. Fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. 'Cause my heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, a reason to wait. 'Cause my heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. My heart has been in your sights long before my first breath, running into your arms is running to life from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest, your mercy is calling. Just as I am, Lord, you pull me in, and I know I need you now. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. 'Cause my heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. And so I run to the Father. I run to the Father, I run to the Father.
I heard a story of a pilot who was kind of reminiscing on his life. And he told this story of when he was a kid, he would sit in this valley and he would sit there with his dad fishing. And as they were fishing, they would look up to the clouds and they would see planes flying over the top of the valley. And this kid would sit there fishing and he would sit and long to be in the plane. He would long to be able to fly a plane one day. And he was so sort of discontent with sat there on the side of this stream or lake or whatever it was, and just sitting there fishing when he desperately just wanted to be flying a plane. So as he grew up, he obviously did everything he needed to do to become a pilot, and he became a pilot. And years went by, and this one time he ended up taking a similar route to fly over this very same valley that he sat in as a child. And what was interesting is, as he was kind of like reminiscing on this experience, he said that he sat in the plane and it was like all of the troubles and the complexities and just the journey of life that had just seemed to have compounded and compiled on top of him. He said he found himself in this moment looking down at the valley and looking down at the place where he'd sit with his dad and fish, and actually remembering the simple times of life and the times when he did things just because he enjoyed it. And he said he found himself discontented, sat in the plane. And he said he actually really wanted to be down there fishing again like he did as a child. I wonder what your relationship is like with contentment. I wonder how it is you approach feeling content in your life. I wonder if actually contentment is that ever elusive feeling that you constantly chase, like you're chasing a specter or a ghost. You can never just seem to get it. You're chasing it in all sorts of ways. It might be in your faith. You just think, I just want to feel that click. I just want to feel that rightness. And you're chasing, you're trying all these different things, and you're trying to be better and do better. Or maybe in your life, actually, you're just sat here being like, I'm just trying to find that click of contentment, looking for it in my job, my career, my bank balance, my family, my friends, whatever route it might be. It just feels like contentment is that sand that just seems to leak through your fingers and you can't seem to keep hold of it. Contentment can be described, or at least in the dictionary anyway, as a state of happiness and satisfaction. A state of happiness and satisfaction. Okay, fair enough. But I actually want to suggest to us this morning that contentment is actually a far deeper rooted sense of peace in ourselves, peace in what we have, peace in where we are. Contentment is actually one of the biggest struggles of humanity. I don't know about you, but if you look around our world right now, maybe if you're even honest with yourself, you look around your life, there are so many things designed to tell us that we don't have enough, that we are not enough, to tell us that what we've got just isn't good enough, it's just not going to be able to last, that it's not the newest, the bestest, the coolest, the whatever. If you look around our world right now, it seems as though there is this parallel pandemic running alongside COVID-19, and that is this feeling of discontent. This ability that we seem to naturally have to compare ourselves with one another leaves us feeling just not enough. And again, if we're being honest with ourselves, that wrestle we have with contentment seems to be one that pops his head up quite regularly. And again, in 2022, if we want to be the people that God has called us to be, to do what He has called us to do, to live the life in relationship with Him that He has for us, to live in the freedom and the power that He has got, we are going to have to wrestle with contentment. So I want to look at this today. And my prayer is that, again, these messages are not silver bullets. They're not going to fix everything. But my heart today is that I can offer you something from Scripture that will help you frame your life and understand yourself as you approach contentment. And I pray today that actually you would leave this virtual gathering with a focus in your mind and a realization that I can be content. So we're going to look at it. So let's look at Philippians chapter 4, and we're going to read from verse 11 through to verse 13. So it says this: I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Verse 13 says, I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. So the book of Philippians, the letter to the church in Philippi, is written by the Apostle Paul. Now, a lot of the time, the Apostle Paul has started a church and he is essentially writing to them to address something, but not in this case. In the case of Philippians, Paul is actually really proud of them. They've acted really well. They've held to their faith. They've been a people of conviction. They've journeyed through things under persecution. They've been joyful. They've been generous. So he's essentially writing to them to say, hey, you're doing amazing. And then he champions them into the future. You're doing an amazing job. Keep going. This is great. This is the way it's supposed to be. And basically the church in Philippi helped Paul out. They showed concern for him. And he's basically in this last part here from basically verse 10 to verse 20. He is thanking them for their support and their generosity. And we find this little passage right in the middle of it where Paul is talking about contentment. And he's basically saying, look, I don't say, thank you for your gifts, and I don't express my need to you because I'm trying to get something off you. No, I've actually learned to be content. So I think this passage speaks perfectly into our context today, right here in 2022, as we as people look at how can we be content right now in ourselves, in what we have. I think it's going to be good. So let's look at a few observations, and then we'll look at how does Paul outline contentment? How can we be content? So the first thing is this. Paul starts in verse 11 by saying this: I have learned to be content. I have learned to be content. The interesting thing about contentment, and Paul sets this up for us, is that he had to learn to be content. Contentment is not the preset of humanity. Contentment is not natural to the human condition. Contentment is not the way if we just left ourselves to our own devices. Contentment is not the natural sway, the natural way that we would go. It's not the way we would lean. Actually, we are wired, because we are sort of fallen and broken and sinful people, in the sense that we are separated from God in our natural state. We are wired towards feeling discontent with ourselves, with what we have, with where we're at, with relationships, with whatever it might be. And we sit and we compare ourselves. That is the natural makeup of humanity. So when we live without our relationship with God, when we live away from God, in severance from God, in separation from God, we can look around at the world and see that there are so many people that are just living these discontented lives, chasing this ever elusive feeling of contentment or happiness or some state of satisfaction, when really there's this deep rooted need in them to have this peace, this click, this contentment in who they are and what they have. I have learned to be content. Contentment is not human nature. So, let's start here. This is the perfect place to start, to encourage you. If you're sat there feeling like, I just don't feel content in my life, well, this is the perfect place to begin, because I want to encourage you, contentment is not human nature. That is the preset of us all. So the thing is, we need to learn contentment. That's the purpose of this message today, is to point us to the scriptures to help us learn to live a life of contentment. Contentment is not human nature. The second thing is this. He says he's learned to have contentment whether he is being well fed or whether he's hungry. He says, I have had nothing and I have had plenty. I've been well fed and I have been hungry. In other words, he's showing the basis here. This is one of the sort of methods that the Bible writers would use. They would use a beginning thing and an end thing to demonstrate everything in between. I've said this in a previous message before, that when a Bible writer uses the beginning and the end, what they're essentially symbolizing is beginning, end, and everything in between. When someone says, sun and moon, they essentially mean day and night and everything in between. So when Paul is saying, I've had a lot and I've had nothing and I've had everything in between. I have been well fed and I've been hungry and I've been somewhere in between. He's basically showing this all encompassing phrase here. He's saying, look, I've had everything and I've had nothing and I've learned to be content. And again, this helps us frame contentment here. Paul is saying, it's not human nature. And the second thing he's saying is this: there is no correlation between contentment and circumstance. Rewind that for a second. There is no correlation between contentment and circumstance. Now, again, we live in here in February 2022. And the interesting thing is our culture, as in the environment, the society, everything that makes up the layers of our culture will tell us that to be content, to be happy, to be yourself, you will require a certain set of circumstances, whether that be a perfect marriage or a not a marriage, or it might be a certain amount of money or no money, whatever the sort of line is. It could be, to eat a certain way, or to believe something specific, or it might be an approach to life. As in, all these circumstances need to be perfect, and then you can have contentment. You know what? You'll feel all right once you get that promotion. Yeah, you'll feel all right once you start the business. You'll feel all right once you hit that certain milestone of savings in your bank account. You'll feel yourself. You'll feel satisfied. You'll feel happy when you fill in the blank for whatever it is you have sort of bought into in your own life. But Paul is framing this for us. I have had nothing and I have had plenty. In other words, there is no correlation between contentment and circumstance, which is a huge encouragement, because we're going to look at why this is important. You in your life right now might be sat there thinking, you know what, my life isn't so much all together. My finances aren't so much all together. My health, my family, my marriage, whatever it might be in your life right now. And again, culture's saying all these things need to be right and then you'll feel content. But actually, Paul demonstrates something here. And the question that you and I are both asking in this moment right now is, well, okay, I get it if it's not human nature and it isn't dependent on circumstances. Well, how do I live a life of contentment? How do I go about doing that? Well, listen to this. Paul says, I have learned the secret. This is verse 12. I have learned the secret to being content. Before we jump into how Paul demonstrates a life of contentment, what the secret is, I find it interesting that Paul says, I've learned the secret, because it shows us something, that it was as rare back then as it is today. Contentment was as rare around Paul's sort of time when he lived 2,000 years ago as it is in our day today. Contentment is not something that many people can get their heads around. Contentment is not something that many people will actually end up living a life of, because it is so difficult, because it requires us to position ourselves and to go beyond the things that are available to us, that are convenient, to go beyond the answers that are within us. It is a secret in the sense that it just seems so rare. But if you and I want to be the people that God has made us to be, I believe that the secret is outlined in this passage in Philippians. And this is what it says in verse 13. It says, I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. Or another passage says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Paul has been kind of like building a pathway up to this sentence. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That is the secret of contentment. Contentment is not found within ourselves. It's not found within our circumstances. It is not found within our essence or our nature. It's not found within our bank account or anything else. Contentment, living a life of contentment, is found only in relationship with Jesus. What does that mean? It means that Jesus plus nothing is what is required in our life. Because some of us like to add Jesus plus our savings in the background just in case something goes wrong. Or Jesus plus all the kids behaving and us having like quite a peaceful life. Or Jesus plus whatever it might have been in your life. But Paul is saying, I can be content through Christ who strengthens me. In John chapter 15, verse 5, Jesus says this, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me, in other words, if you remain in relationship, in connection to me, and I in you, if I remain in connection with you, then you will bear much fruit. In other words, you will grow, you will be who it is He's made you to be. And then He says, apart from me, you can do nothing. He says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. And apart from me, you can do nothing. If you are sat here this morning thinking, I really want to live a life of contentment, the beginning, the first place that we start with contentment is this: relationship with Jesus. Stepping into a relationship with Jesus. And then he says this, he says, I can do all things, or I can do all of this through Christ who strengthens me. If I can maybe offend you for a moment, those of you who are Christians or people of faith, so often we hear this phrase used as this like triumphalist statement of, I can overcome everything in my life because Christ is with me, because Jesus gives me strength. And we often take this as this maybe like bumper sticker or like fridge magnet or whatever it might be. And what we do is we apply it to us and we think, I can do everything because Jesus has said that he can be my strength. So we can look at situations in our own eyes and through our own will, and we can say like, I want this. Well, this is what the Bible says. Thing is, the Bible was not written to us, but it was written for us, and we need to learn how to interpret and correctly balance the scripture. And the context of verses is really, really important. This is not a triumphalist statement of you can do whatever you want, you can dominate whatever you want. This is not a promise of just mere provision. This is actually a promise of God's presence. He is with you. So when it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, understand the context of this. We've just been talking about Paul saying, I've had loads and I've had nothing. I've eaten a lot and I've eaten nothing. I've been rich and I've been poor. And then he says, I can do all of this. In other words, this is to rephrase, to kind of make sure we frame the context of this. Paul is saying this, I can endure all things. I can make it through all things, whether I am in a season of plenty or in a season of lack. I can endure all things, still live a life of contentment, still be able to withstand the things that life throws at me because Jesus is my strength. Let's not get this wrong this morning to see this as some ticket. Now, it is an encouragement. I want to encourage you right now. If God has called you to something, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. You can do what he has called you to do because he will be your strength and your power. But this passage is specifically talking about contentment. You can be content because Jesus gives you the strength to do so. Now, you know what I find interesting? Why is strength the characteristic that Jesus gives us when it comes to contentment? Why is it not, I can do all things through Jesus who gives me contentment? No, because contentment is something we have to learn. Like we've said, it is not human nature. It is not in correlation with our circumstance. It's something we need to learn and train ourselves in. So it says, he will give us strength. Why? Strength to stand tall when it feels like the ground beneath you is falling. Strength to stand against the wave of whatever it might be in your life. It might be pain. It might be some form of suffering, like a medical or financial or relational or emotional breakdown. It could just be a crisis you're going through in your life, or it could just be a slump. I know so many people and friends that as they've entered 2022 have entered with such a burden on the back of, COVID-19 and the whole pandemic, and it's just people are just feeling down, like a slump. Same applies for you. You can endure all things. You can make it through all things. You will be okay. Not because you are taking cold showers in the morning and running 10 miles and you've got all of these amazing things in place in your life and your eating is perfect and you're doing yoga and whatever else it might be. You've got the savings and the whatever. No, it is because Jesus promises his presence along the way. He is with you. You can do all things because he walks with you. Verse 13, like I said, it is not a promise of mere provision. It is a promise of his presence. Maybe this morning you have been looking for this deep sense of click, this deep sense of contentment in your life. I just want to feel content in who I am and what I have. The only place that you will find true contentment is in relationship with Jesus as he strengthens you to be who you have been called to be right in this moment. Let me encourage you with this. You have everything you need right now to be who God has called you to be. You have everything in your hand in this very moment to do what God has called you to do, no matter what it is. That is a promise found in the scriptures. He is with you and he has equipped you to do everything that he has asked according to his will. But maybe you've actually been looking for that deep sense of contentment in various other ways, success, in stuff, in job, in relationship, or within yourself. You know, so many Christians at the moment are entering this weird hybrid between like Christian and Buddhism, where we think that actually God is just this personal expression of ourself, and we live according to our feelings and our emotions, and all it is about finding peace in yourself. That's what contentment is. Being okay with you. You don't need to change because you are you. You are a God in yourself. That is not the message of Scripture. And I want to love you this morning by telling you the truth, is that we are desperately in need of our relationship with God. Why? Because we can only find true contentment. We can only find true identity. We can only find ourselves in relationship with the one who made us. And because of his desperate love for us, he wanted to create a way for us to actually live a life of contentment and to live a life of wholeness and freedom in relationship with him. That because of our separation, because of sin, we lived in separation from God because of our sin and our dysfunction and our brokenness. And that God loved us so much that he sent his one and only Son. And according to the Scriptures, this is what it says, that Jesus came and he died upon a cross to take on our sin and our shame and our guilt. And he hung there and remembered you. And he did all of this to draw us back, to give us the opportunity to live in relationship with the Father again. And 3 days later, he rose again to give you and I a hope to be the people that he has made us to be. And he ascended back into heaven. And right now, he extends his invitation. Come and live in relationship with me. Come and know me. Come and invite me into your life. Accept what I did for you so that you can live in relationship. And that is the secret to contentment in your life. So maybe right now, for two groups of people, the first group, maybe you're sat listening and being like, I've never known this Jesus. I've never accepted what he did for me 2,000 years ago on a cross so that I could live in freedom, so I could live in wholeness, in relationship with God. I want to encourage you this morning, all you have to do is pray a simple prayer. This is the first of many conversations that you will have with God. This is the beginning. You simply say, Jesus, I give you my life. I take all of my wrongdoing, my sin, and I give it over to you, and I turn away from it. I give you my life. And maybe for those listening this morning that have struggled and wrestled with this sense of contentment, I pray today that actually you would lean into your relationship with Jesus. And although contentment is not human nature, I pray today that today could be the beginning of that journey to learn to be content, to listen to who Jesus says you are, to listen to who he has created you to be, and to live in perfect harmony with him for the rest of your life. And I promise you, contentment can only be found in that place. I pray for everyone watching that you would leave this gathering encouraged and inspired, that you have everything you need in this moment, because Jesus has his arm out, extended, saying, come and be in relationship with me. Let's be a people in 2022 that live a life of contentment, that others ask us, how are you doing this? And we can share with them the simple, profound hope of life with Jesus.
What an amazing gathering we've had. I have loved it so much, and I hope you have too. Maybe this morning you've got questions or you want to connect with us, then email us at hello@light.church. And maybe you've crossed that line of faith and you've made that decision to become a follower of Jesus. Well, we don't want you to do that alone. We're all about community here at Light Church. So make sure you send us an email at hello@light.church so we can send you resources, we can connect you with people, we can give you a Bible, just so much we can give you and offer you as you start this journey. Or maybe you do just want to connect with us, you want to say hey, and you want to find out more about what's happening at Light Church. Then you can even head to light.church/connect and fill in the form there. Or maybe you're already part of Light Church and you just want to get more and more involved. Well, make sure you're following us on all of our social platforms. We're over on Instagram and Facebook, where we're sharing weekly content that will encourage you and inspire you throughout your week. And also, we've got this YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to it, you've liked this video, and you're sharing this content with the people you know. We've had a great gathering, and I cannot wait to see you again next week.